Hello, this is John Smith. Welcome to the Psalming Effect. I'm sitting here in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, where I minister for the Church of Christ here, and it's May the 22nd, 2023. And we had a camp planning meeting yesterday for our children's camps, children's camp that the Church of Christ in Weyburn provides out at Clearview Christian Camp, and so there was that on my mind, and also I've been outside in the last few days working in the yard and doing different things, and there's more I need to do, and I'm really noticing. I have for a few weeks now, but it's really becoming obvious how many birds there are that are nesting and gathering, and that are present in the outdoors. It's nice to see them, and it's nice to hear them. So it was really encouraging for me today when I read from the Psalms to run into a psalm that talked about living in tents, which is what camping is to a lot of people, and also it talks about the image of birds, and in particular the idea of a mother bird of some kind sheltering under her wings her little ones. And so I just want to read that passage where I saw that in the Psalms, but I want you to notice that there's actually four images, and they kind of work progressively to talk about the kind of relationship that we can have with God, that and the benefit that relationship with God gives us in life. So I'll just read that from the Psalm. It's Psalm 61, and it's the first three verses of that Psalm. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. And now here comes the four images. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. That's the second image. Let me dwell in your tent forever. That's the third image. Let me take refuge under the shelter of your wings. That's the fourth image. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. That's actually the first five verses of Psalm 61. So in those verses, there's four images about the protection and the shelter and the security that we can find in a relationship with God. But what I want you to notice that there's a progression in intimacy and depth of relationship suggested by them all. The first image is that of a rock that is higher than I. So this would be a rock, an immovable rock, maybe an outcropping in a rocky place that provides a natural shelter that you could go and run to and be protected. And so there's nothing really that you do to build that. It's there. It's out there, and you just have to get to the place and hide and shelter in the protection of this rock that is higher than I. And so that, in a sense, is what God is for us in terms of strength and security and protection. He is like a rock that is much bigger than us, much stronger than us, and is able to protect us, and we can always go to him. But the next image is that of a tower. Now, a tower, especially in those days, was built out of rock, but it was built out of rock. And so it wasn't just there somewhere, but it's something that had to be built and built up. And so that would take time. And so that's another aspect of, and talks about the intimacy with God. It's not just that God is a place or God is a person that we can run to for protection, but there's a relationship there that we build over time, just like you build a tower rock by rock and you raise it up, and the better and more attention that you give to the building of the tower, the stronger and the better a tower it is. And that is also true of our relationship with God. The more time we spend with Him, the more attention we give to developing a relationship, to listening to Him, to speaking to Him, to delving into His Word, then we're building a tower of in a relationship with God that is of greater protection and is of greater value to us. Then the next image is that of a tent and dwelling in His tent. And this is where the camping imagery comes to me. You know, tents allow you to pick up and move from one place to another. And so David, who is the writer of this psalm, he was on the move quite a bit, especially when he was a young man and he was looking after sheep, or even later when he was leading the armies of Israel, or some of his own soldiers who were fighting Philistines and doing different things. They were on the move. And when they had to stop and stay somewhere, I suppose sometimes they just slept under the stars, but that wasn't ideal. If they were in rugged country, they would find caves and they would stay there. And we have several of those episodes from David's life where he found shelter there. But the ideal way that David and his men and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and others that we read about who moved from place to place, the ideal way to shelter for the night was to stay in a tent and to dwell in a tent. When the children of Israel traveled through the wilderness, they lived in tents. And when God wanted them to move, He led them to the next place where there was an oasis, or where there would be it would be away from their enemies, or whether it would be in the direction of where they needed to go, or where there was pasture for their flocks and herds. But the ability to move from place to place, I mean, once you build a city with dwellings in it, then you're fixed in place. But if you dwell in tents, and Abraham's a good example of this, then you can move from place to place when it becomes beneficial to do so. And so what that imagery, I think, gives us in our relationship to God, dwelling in your tent forever, is, that God is, this relationship with God and this, what we develop with Him, moves with us and can benefit us wherever we are. It's not just a relationship that we have in the fellowship of our church and within the walls of a church building. We can have that relationship with God and feel that security and protection wherever we go. It's not just in the safety of our own home, our house where we live. It's at our workplace. It's at our neighbor's house. It's in a public place. It's when we're traveling. It's when we're out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe when we're camping. There's that relationship with God travels with us, so that we are always dwelling in His tent and benefiting from our relationship with Him. So you see how that emphasizes some different things. There's one thing to have the rock that we can always go to, but and the tower that we build over time. But then there's the importance of the portability and the tent that goes with us everywhere that we go. And then the fourth image is let me take refuge under the shelter of your wings. And so that's the image of a bird sheltering her little ones under her wings. And that emphasizes the intimacy that we have with God. And so, I mean, especially if you think from the beginning of this series of images, the rock that is higher than I, that doesn't really say as much about the warmth and the love and the intimacy of the relationship with God. I mean, I can go nestle up to a rock and still be just as cold, and still be just as scared, and and I guess I can speak to the rock, but I mean, the rock isn't going to talk back to me. But when you nestle up to God, like a bird who has its little chicks, its little ones nestling under her wings, there's a relationship of love and care there. It's not just a cold, hard, albeit solid rock, but now there is and yes, there's the strength of the wings, and that's part of the image that's intended there as well. But I think the other part of that image is the closeness and the intimacy that there is in being gathered under the wings of our God. So those are what the four images, I think, communicate to us about our relationship with God. The strength and the safety, the permanence of the rock, the building and the developing of relationship that the tower pictures, the portability and the ability to move with us that the tent illustrates, and then the intimacy, the love, and the care that the shelter of wings illustrates to us. Well, I hope those thoughts will bless you throughout this week. Go back to the Psalm 61. That's the first 5 verses, and there's more in there, but you could spend all your time just reflecting on those four things, and actually thinking about your relationship with God, and how, do you need to do more work at building the tower? Do you need to spend more time appreciating the rock that God is? Do you need to develop a better sense of dwelling in His tent that goes with you everywhere? And or do you just need to find more depth and come to know the love and the intimacy that you can have with God? So spend time in His Word. Let this psalm and wherever else you go in the Scriptures this week have a psalming effect on your life. And hopefully you'll be able to say that Jesus is for me in 2023.